They were actually part of the first incubation cycle in Plan 9. At the time, they used to make handmade leather shoes, and the company was called Marcor. And they would make these handmade leather shoes and sell them on a fairly large arbitrage online. But clearly, scaling such a business is not easy. So they kept working on the idea, pivoting, refining, reinventing what they were doing, and eventually ran a Kickstarter round. I think they got $150,000. They used some of that money to survive for a few more months, and then eventually got selected at the Y Combinator, which is the world's premier startup incubator in the US. And in that cycle, they learned that they could pivot from handmade leather shoes to custom-sized, very comfortable and environment-friendly sneakers, which is what Wear Atoms is. I won't be surprised if some of you are wearing them. I won't be surprised if many of you have heard of them. And from that came a startup that has now made masks, which everyone in the world uses. They've raised tons of money in the US, and it's kind of just a shoe to wear. And I keep in touch with Sidra and Vikas, the two founders of Wear Atoms, just checking on them every so often how things are going. And the day they raised money, their first round, I think it was $8 million out of Y Combinator, I wrote to them saying, well, you could be a competition for Allbirds, which is another company in the same space. So they responded by saying, no, we want to compete with Nike. So that was the ambition. And I wish them well. I hope that they continue to grow and go even farther than they have in the US. That was one example of a startup from here to Y Combinator to this now global phenomena where all the young people want to go and buy their shoes. Now we want to institutionally help that happen, and for that we have Bridge Start Pakistan. Through this program, we're going to enter into a partnership with scores of startup incubators and accelerators globally. We're going to set aside money so that we can select some startups from the startups that have been incubated either in the public sector or in private sector incubators. And if they're able to get selected in these global incubators, we will fund them. We will support their travel, their lodging, their boarding there. We will support whatever money is required for them to go and get incubated in a more developed ecosystem. I think we've come up with about 20 to 30 startup incubators. It's the sort of the same usual suspects that you have globally, but they extend all the way from the US to the Middle East. And I think starting in a couple of months, the program has already been approved by the government, the funding has been set aside, and in a couple of months we'll begin to send these startups to these incubators. So the idea is that we incubate these startups, our own startups, for 6 odd months in various incubation cycles that we have in Pakistan. And from that, we then are able to fund startups to be able to travel to more developed ecosystems, to incubators like Capital Factory, to Garage, to Gaia, to Y Combinator, to Plug and Play Tech Center, to District 71, and so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of incubators and accelerators that the team has come up with, and we are happy to fund these startups to be able to go there, get their idea further refined, and hopefully try and raise money from that ecosystem. The second program, which is what this program is largely about, is what we call the Pakistan Startup Fund. Now the question was that there's a lot of investments that are already happening in Pakistan, of course. Good about $800 million have been invested, maybe a little bit more in the last few years in Pakistani startups. Some of these startups are certainly on a journey to become unicorns. This is the 5th largest country in the world. Every household has a smartphone. Why not? There's no reason why you won't get a unicorn in the fintech space, and the edtech space, and the agtech space, and the retail tech space, and B2B commerce, and consumer e-commerce, and so on. You'll get unicorns in each one of these verticals. There's absolutely no reason why you won't have them. So the question is, what can the government do at this point in time? So there is a program, the Pakistan Startup Fund. Let me first talk about the program. So the program kind of addresses the most tricky time in the life of a startup, which is once you've been incubated and you are trying to raise private venture capital